Good evening and welcome to Responding to COVID-19 on TTT Talk City 91.1 FM and TTT Live online on Facebook. I am Wesley Gibbings. From day one of the pandemic, several areas of national commercial activity became prioritized as being essential to a measure of normalcy while the health sector addresses the immediate needs of a nation under threat. The food and domestic supplies sector has remained open and engaged in providing some of these essential requirements. Today, at the Daily Health Ministry update, for example, several measures were also announced to ensure the continued safety of workers and customers in the retail sector. This evening, we are joined by the President of the Supermarket Association, Mr. Rajiv Diptee, to discuss the status of the sector and how he sees the way forward. Welcome to the program, Rajiv.
Hi, Wesley. Thank you for having me on the show.
Now, you were on air with us at the start of this and sort of relaying what you thought were the possible scenarios. How have things been? How have your expectations been met?
Well, I remember the last time I was on a show with you, I was there, I think, with Dr. Rahman from the Medical Association, and that relationship actually proved very useful as we worked with them to develop the guidelines for how we would manage the number of persons in the store. So, yes, Wesley, thank you for being very useful in that regard.
Okay. But so you've kept up the collaboration, but to what end? Have you been following the guidelines? Have you been having issues with your member supermarkets? What are some of the
Well,
challenges you have been
it's been
facing?
it was a situation that every day was evolving. So remember that they announced the you know the partial lockdown. I think it was on the 1st of May. So, sorry, the 1st of April. Yeah. And what happened is we were dealing with a situation where just prior to that, customers were panic buying, and then we had to find a way to manage the numbers inside the stores. So social distancing inside and outside the stores became very important, and we had to be very effective about how we were doing it. So what some of these stores have been doing, some of them have provided hand wash stations where you can wash your hands now, and then you enter the store after you wash your hands. Some of them provide hand sanitizer as you enter to either, so that you can sanitize your hands. And at the same time, when we manage the number of persons in the store with a formula developed where, I mean, if you have a stores varying sizes, we try to have a general guideline to maintain social distancing between in the aisles, about 9 feet. So you cater 3 feet for social distancing, 3 feet for a trolley, and 3 feet as a precaution. So using that formula, and basically a formula whereby you establish a radius of about 100 square feet around each person, you arrive at how many persons you can accommodate in the store. Now, this is just a general guideline. I mean, this was what was advised to us by the folks at the Medical Association. Um, we've also had to find ways to control the social distancing outside the store because you had a situation where crowds were developing. And what we did is we placed markers on the ground so that we placed these markers 3 feet apart. So you could have, we put red X's. Some people would have had decals in place now on the floor, to make the social distancing very obvious. One person stand here, you stand 3 feet behind on the next sign. And I think these things will remain a feature for some time. Um, we've also had all our staff wearing masks, gloves where applicable. Um, some stores have put plexi screens between the customer and the cashier. We've had to do a lot of public education because this is something that people have had to learn literally overnight. Customers and staff, you have to keep constantly reminding them. So we use a lot of signage inside the stores to remind people. You put signs outside the store. Um, it's also, we've been urging less people to come to the supermarkets, at least, in big families. send one or two persons to the store. This is something that people are still not doing. They're still bringing the whole family to the store. We want to remind them that the elderly and children should not be in the store. That is something that they should be responsible about and address. I think also that you want, since the face mask is not in ordinance as yet as a requirement, but we have strongly recommended to come to the store and use a mask. Now, it does not have to be, it could be a t-shirt, a kerchief, whatever it is, but please cover your face. It is to protect yourself and the other customers as well. Um, we've seen a lot of things like this, and we've encouraged a lot of alternative options. You could WhatsApp your grocery list. You could call in. We try and it's a time to be innovative, and a lot of supermarkets have gotten innovative in that regard.
But to what extent are you seeing some of these measures becoming permanent features of the operations of supermarkets?
Well, a lot of that depends on the updates from the Ministry of Health. A lot of what we do is guided by what is coming out of the press conferences.
But do you think that in any event, some of these things perhaps ought to have been considered before, even in the pre-COVID era, with respect to health and safety issues, both for the workers and for customers?
To be honest with you, we never had such a high level of viral pandemic threat. And I mean, some of these things, if we should have maybe considered precautions as we realized that this was a global pandemic from the earlies, and maybe encourage more of the face mask wearing, that kind of thing. But I can tell you that we are working with the relevant ministries. We submitted a roadmap plan for our sector. Um, I mean, depending on what is said to us by the Ministry of Health, I believe that the general tone of what is coming out is that the curve is being flattened. There are no new cases being reported, and patients have been discharged, and surveillance testing will tell us what is the real picture by the end of this weekend, or going into next week. And based on that, I think that what the government will want to see is that businesses, including us, operate with a level of responsibility. So we plan to keep a lot of these measures in place, from the hand washing or the hand sanitizing, wearing the face masks. Some supermarkets have made the face masks mandatory because it's really something that you should be responsible about. It's not hard to fashion a mask. Um, I think that you will see the social distancing remaining a norm. I think you will see that they do not want to encourage clusters of persons together in that regard. We already operating at shortened hours in this period. If it's 6 o'clock right now, yes. I think that when they open back, we too will look to have a phased resumption of working hours, in that we don't want to crowd the stores. The people after work have to come to the supermarket. So we propose to adjust it from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then after a couple of weeks, we review that and we monitor that and we see what's going on out there. Because remember, there's also transport to consider for our staff members. And remember, social distancing is now being enforced in any private taxis and all of that. So all these things are considerations as well.
But how have things been like from a business standpoint? Have people been able to make money? Have you had issues with the workers? Have there been layoffs? Has there been a sort of crisis situation in the sector?
Well, you raise some good points. So the staff labor has been an issue because remember, they are also afraid to come out. Remember, transport is also another issue, because if it costing them a lot to come out to work, then they're not going to want to come out to work, because then a lot of that money going into transport. We've had to dip into our pockets to assist with transport, or to at least cover a portion of transport for these workers, because we really need them to come out right now. That is something that is really, every supermarket has a minimum number of employees for operating purposes, and we need the employees to come out. The second thing is that, remember, in terms of making money, as you put it, we have less persons in the store, and we have to manage a crowd. And there's a lot of tension with people outside and inside, it's not like there's a large volume of persons passing through. So we have to. It's actually costing us more to control the crowd. Remember, we have to put somebody outside now. Otherwise, you could run the risk of being shut down because that's if the police see a situation that is or sees a business that is creating a congregation or a cluster, they could shut you down, right? So we've had to manage that situation. Um, People are shopping for what they need, but remember that a lot of panic buying took place prior to all of this. So a lot of people pantries are very full, right?
Okay.
Very, very full. So I mean, even with some customers, we see that the culture has been that they just want to come to the store to buy snacks. Like
Yes.
and these are you might see people in the stores, but what are they really buying? Sometimes and this is the thing that this defeats the stay-at-home measures that were put in place in the first place. So we've had a lot of that.
So there have been implications in terms of your inventory. I noticed that in some instances, prepared food is now joining the list of items that people are going to supermarkets, which is a place you probably would never go to before to get prepared food. So have there been changes in inventories?
Well, in terms of the kitchens, not many supermarkets have those facilities, right? That's a handful of stores. Those that have kitchens are all prepackaged food as it is stated in the ordinance. Those establishments that can carry them, like there was an example yesterday. But once it's prepackaged, there's no issues there. And this was actually put forward to me by the commissioner personally. So I know that there were no issues. But I think what happens sometimes is that the communication it needs to circumnavigate the channels, right? So you find sometimes that people are coming. Yes, they might go there for the meals, but that's
Yes.
not their primary focus. We see them shopping around for things that we might not consider essential. But I
Okay.
think people, in the habit, in the culture of Trinidad and Tobago, they like to be out a little bit. So it's
Okay.
it's
We're
something.
going to go to a break now, but we're going to discuss that a little bit more and some of the changes in business practices when we come back.
Sure.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Responding to COVID-19 on TTT, Talk City 91.1 FM, and TTT Live online on Facebook. I am Wesley Gibbings. This evening, we are having a conversation with the President of the Supermarket Association, Mr. Rajiv Diptee, on the continuing role of the retail sector as the country addresses the COVID-19 challenge. Welcome back, Mr. Diptee. Now, we're
Right.
talking about some of this is really business unusual as people have been describing it. And you have been facing, you and your member uh, organizations have been facing very distinct challenges over this period. And then you're also seeing changes in customer behavior in terms of what the new areas of demand, changing areas of demand. And you did speak about the notion of the stockpiling of certain categories of product. By
Right.
now, I suppose that's starting to run out, so you'll probably get increased demand in those same areas. What's happening on the ground right now?
Well, you have a lot of concerned persons because remember, unemployment has increased. People have been retrenched in different formats. So I think that there is a concern by a lot of citizens. They are watching their spending in terms of the grassroots population, and they have every right to worry about their immediate futures. We've seen a number of SMEs, looking at their very survival in terms of their cash flows, in terms of their loan deferrals. There's been a lot of talks about what's going on at banks and is there different issues by all, and it's making the patterns of shopping more frugal, in my opinion. Yes, people are coming to the stores. They may be trading down. there are deep concerns about, I mean, we also have deep concerns about the employment factor, because obviously we need people to be earning money to be able to spend it at the stores in the first place. Um, there is a lot of uncertainty, Wesley, as far as this goes, because I think the country is looking to restart, but it needs to do so with the information that it can continue to operate as normal. And as you said, these are not normal times. It is very surreal, and we we have seen that many countries, many nations across the world have kept some of these measures in place, and I do not believe that we will be any different.
Now, at the beginning of all of this, there was some concern that your suppliers, because of disruptions in international trade, shipping, and the transport of product, that might have become a challenge. Did your were your worst fears realized? And what's the outlook at this current time in terms of your
Well,
suppliers?
okay, so in terms of suppliers, we obviously, there would have been some concern about food prices, because everybody's been talking about food prices, and I would have noticed that the the Food Distributors Association, their chairman, that's Mr. Mark Pontifex, he came on to an interview on Monday, and he would have spoken about the challenges faced by suppliers with regards to foreign exchange and the access to the actual supply chain, and any challenges that they were facing. And it's a lot of it is in line with what we are saying. They are also price takers out there. We are price takers from the local suppliers. The local suppliers brings us the lines of product, and we have to take it from them at the prices they have. Obviously, when they buy on the international markets now, they're getting it at different prices. And remember, where there is an increased demand at this time, yeah, and goods are scarce to an extent. I wouldn't use the word scarce, but where there is an increased demand, and they are getting it at different prices. The reality is, though, that we have a lot of that we are getting everything that we want. Let me say that first of all, we do not anticipate any kind of shortages. What you're seeing right now, Wesley, is that certain, like for example, with say rice, you might not get it in the because of what's happening in some of the factories locally and internationally. Whereas a factory might have run 50 stock keeping units, because of social distancing and everything that needs to happen inside of that factory now, maybe they'll prioritize 25 to 30. So you wouldn't get the same variety of product, but you'll get the product. You'll get it. It's just that you will not get it in the form and fashion that you're accustomed to.
And so, what would all of this? What was the implication for prices?
The implications are, the reality is that people talk about price increases, but in some cases, it's a matter of sense. So you really have to be cautious. Obviously, with some of the cleaning products and like Lysol and that kind of thing, obviously those prices, those goods are practically gold right now. So people will pay over the top for it, but at the same time, I would challenge the to some relevant body to take a they should do a prices analysis pre-COVID and post-COVID to see what the changes really are, because you also have to take into consideration what we've been buying it at, and we cannot say this enough. We buy it at the way supermarkets operate is we have to push the volumes. It's not necessarily prices. It could be a matter of a few cents or some dollars, and yes, I know it adds up, but it's not it's just a situation that we find ourselves in an industry. Um, for the if there are delinquents out there, we've also been working with the, I want to point out as well that we've been working with the Fair Trading Commission. We had a communication with them just this week, and we were all reminded of responsible pricing, and we also reminded them that this is a fiercely competitive sector, right? There are so many options for the consumer that if you're not getting the right price in one store, you have the choice to not patronize that store, and you can get it somewhere else. There is simply no space for people to be conducting any kind of severely bloated price increases. It just doesn't work. And fair enough, the Fair Trading Commission, we push out anyone that has such a complaint onto them as well.
Now, have you been finding that a lot of supermarket operators have been attempting to take advantage, well, which is on offer, of course, of some of the measures put in place in terms of uh, the bank relations with the bank, debts, overdraft facilities, and so on? Have many of them been having to resort to the measures?
First of all, are you talking about the supermarket operators?
Supermarket, yes.
Right. So the thing about it is, to be quite honest, we fall into the category of everyone else when it comes to dealing with our banks. Yes, we have relationships with them. Uh, and what I mean is we fall into the category of, if some of us have loans that we have to defer, I think that the spotlight is now on the banks because they are saying that the accrual of interest is
Yes.
not being deferred. And fair point. I think that needs to be addressed because the bank they record a great profit every year, and I do not think it will hurt them to really revisit that. But again, that's for the banks, the government, to look at. I think that we are all being asked to share any load, and I think that they should be sharing any load. Um, all institutions at this time, supermarkets, suppliers, banks, we all are doing our part to share any load. It has not been easy. I want to point out that the cost of operation for supermarkets have also increased. Remember, we are sanitizing surfaces right through. We are trolleys on the outside. We've been cleaning the stores regularly. It has been absolutely outrageous. We have not been measuring the cost of doing this exercise, and we have just done it because the reality is to stay in operation and for the safety of your own staff and yourself when you are in the store, you have to do this because it's something you can't really. It's a cost we have not quantified, but it's certainly something that's not been cheap as well. Just, or in trying to keep these things going. But with respect to the banks, I think that there should be a really long hard look because there are a lot of medium-sized operators. I'm sure there are supermarkets out there that have banking relations and may have wanted the opportunity to defer, but maybe we have to look at what's being put on the table.
And finally, as we wrap up, are there plans for the sector coming together and discussing a cohesive plan forward in terms of, because some of these measures are going to become permanent. They're going to transcend this pandemic era, which will involve costs, which will involve changes in the way businesses operate.
Right. So Wesley, we actually submitted a roadmap plan for our sector. Um, right now, we are planning to maintain. Right now, at every store, there is social distancing. There is a high level of sanitation. There's either hand washing or hand sanitizing taking place. There is the requirement or the strong recommendation to wear face masks. There's a certain number of persons in the store, depending on the size of the store, at any one point in time. These we propose to keep these measures in place for at least 1 month period. This will be done in communication with the Ministry of Health. We want to hear from them the developments. It could be that there could be a case, or I know we are all keen to avoid any cases of community spread, to avoid any incidents where we have to close up again. None of us want to do that. None of us want to go back to another lockdown, and we would like to see that these measures are put in place and maintained. And we propose to relax these measures when the Ministry of Health gives that we get some level of clearance. Because and again, the only way they could do this is with testing. So I'm hoping right now that there is a lot of surveillance testing actually happening out there, that it's telling us something. Because I to be honest, I mean, we have to see what that is telling us, because I have not heard quite a lot about it, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much, Rajiv Diptee, Thank you, audience, for staying with us on responding to COVID-19 on TTT Talk City 91.1 FM and TTT Live online on Facebook. I'm Wesley Gibbings with today's guest, Rajiv Diptee, saying please continue to stay safe, follow the guidelines and rules, and save lives. Farewell for now.